And we'll get started. Thank you again, everybody, for attending tonight. I know a lot of you were here last night through our marathon meeting relative to First and Forest and also relative to Butler and 7th stormwater projects. But tonight we're here to specifically talk about Fernwood Park. And even more specific, some of the amenities that were proposed by Parks and Recreation, not only for this park, but for other parks in and around the town of Windermere. Just a matter of decorum. Again, if you have something to say, please try to hold on to it or just type it into the chat box until the end of the presentation, because hopefully I'll be able to answer a lot of the questions that you may have through the presentation. And then if it's still there, we can go to the chat box and answer that question. Also, if you have a comment or a suggestion, please make sure it's directed to me, not anybody else on the Zoom call. If you are on the call and not speaking, please make sure that you mute your speaker. If not, you have Alexa or anything like that, I'll make sure that I set your alarm for 2 a.m. or call somebody or buy something for myself. So make sure it's on mute. I think we have pretty much the same people that were on last time. We have a lot of people that were that live in and around Fernwood Park. So we can, it's basically they live view on this presentation on the 16th. I know it was early in the morning, but it went around 2 hours. Hopefully I can do a little faster than that this time, since there's a lot of familiar faces. And I apologize too, because I'm gonna have to act as administrator and as presenter at the same time. And if you guys are familiar with Zoom, that is not an easy task. So what we're going to talk about tonight is the Fernwood history. We're also going to talk about Parks and Recreation, what they've recommended in their actions. And what that's going to show is going to be the timeline of their suggested improvements, the proposed concept for Fernwood Park, and then submitted comments or concepts by your neighbors. Then we're going to talk about, because again, you can't talk about Fernwood Park without talking about Egret Island, which I'm going to name or call right now Bird Island, because that's what we're all familiar with. So we're going to talk about some of the items that we've done to try to preclude some of the shenanigans at Bird Island prior to 2020. And then we're going to talk about some of the things that we're working on right now to prevent some of the shenanigans that are occurring at Bird Island post 2020. And then we're going to talk about an open discussion relative to the Fernwood improvements, specifically the boardwalk, and then again get into some dialogue of what we're talking about relative to Bird Island. First and foremost, when we come up with these plans and come up with these ideas, we mostly run these plans and ideas, or we have volunteers that do this. They do this, they're not paid. They put a lot of sweat equity into, their volunteerism. And so when Parks and Recreation makes suggestions or recommendations for the parks, understand that their mission is to make sure that the parks are being utilized to their fullest and most appropriate potential. Whether it's passive recreation, active recreation, they do their best, and they do this again by raising their own money. The town recently, probably about 3 years ago, started putting $25,000 into a CIP or a capital improvement program for Parks and Recreation to save money for more amenities. But this is and will always be a volunteer organization. So they donate a lot of their personal time on doing these things. And their biggest fundraisers are the Pet Fest and the Windermere Run Among the Lakes. If you are signed up for the Run Among the Lakes, they will begin on October 1st and end on October 17th. It's now virtual, so you can do it at your own pace, or you can do the actual race route. I have modeled for a banner that I believe that you will see at one of the parks. So if you want to get a Sharpie and put a mustache on me, please feel free to do so. But I want to reiterate again, is that these guys are volunteers. They, use their best judgment and try to make the best decisions for the town of Windermere as a whole. I understand that people are going to be disagreeing with, some of their recommendations, but that's okay. That's what we're here to do, is talk about, what our differences are and see if there's maybe a happy medium in between what they're proposing and what you believe would be a happy compromise. And those members that donate their time is Nora Brophy, Alicia Miller, Doug Bowman, Donna Steele, Sherry Cassidy, Frank Kranz, and Tracy Mitchell. So not only do they have to take care of Fernwood Park, but they take care of a lot of various other parks. Everybody's familiar with Central Park. We just got done with a $50,000 FERDAP grant for Central Park, where we made enhancements to the Frisbee golf. We put a water fountain out there. We did a lot of exercise equipment. You do have 2 playgrounds, one for toddlers, one for older children. And in addition to that, you have a pavilion that people can rent out for birthday parties, so on and so forth. You have Johnson Park, was mostly a retention area. Then you have Lake Bessie, which is a lakefront park, which is going to be the next lightning rod of controversy, I can guarantee, because there is discussions of how to enhance that park for, again, more activity, more residents to utilize, as far as passive recreation or active recreation. You also have Lake Street Park, Park Among the Lakes, which is the Main Street tennis courts. You have Palmer Park, which is located pretty much by West 2nd Avenue. That has some active recreation, meaning it has playgrounds for the kids. And what I didn't mean to leave out of this is Windermere Recreation Center, which is something that we acquired in 2011 that has both active and passive recreation, has a fishing dock, has 2 pavilions, and has tennis courts. But the thing we're here to talk about tonight is Fernwood Park. It was actually platted in 1921, which you can see in the top right. That's the old Windermere plat. And what I have behind here in the nice little diagram is the property appraisers. Sorry about this. Is the property appraisers map. Here's a satellite image of Fernwood Park. As you can see, it's pretty much tucked away into a residential area. You have the Willards right here. Anime, you're right here, right? Anime?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
That's what I figured. So you have Anime that's on, you have Jim that's on as well. And here is Butler, and then here's 7th, and then here's how it swings about. Right here is the little turnaround. Over here is a retention area that we're going to have to expand for, possibly expand if we get the stormwater project approved. And then here's where you see the boathouse, where we have FWC, OCSO, as well as the town of Windermere. And then the current.
Ours up here.
What's that?
This is our place right up here.
The Tegler residence.
Is where? Here?
Right there, over here.
Adjacent to the park.
On the corner there, yeah.
The west side.
Okay, so Anime's right here.
Actually,
Yeah,
I'm actually to the right of the Willards on that picture. There's just so many trees to the, I'm sorry, the right of the Teglers.
Okay, so the Teglers
Right,
where,
you can kind of see my roof a little bit, but yeah, I'm right behind the park.
regardless, you guys are all neighbors, and you're in this area. So you have, the boathouse here, you have the boat dock here, and then over here is the problem area. This is going to be available on the town website. If you have an interest in getting or gaining some of the surveys, stuff like that, everything that we have is public record. You can take a look at it, you can download it, or we can make it available to you if you want to take a look at the surveys and see what the meets and bounds of Fernwood Park is. And here's some of the pictures. I think this is Butler approaching Fernwood Park. Coming down to it, here's actually Fernwood Park. And you can see the turnaround point where the boats come in, the gate's right here. And then over to the side Here's the boathouse where FWC, OCSO, and the Town of Windermere have their boats. Here's the dock that we have that is open to the public. Again, here's the boat ramp where you need a key to enter and to exit. And some more pictures of not only the vegetation, but also the boat dock itself. We used to have on here the rope, but that continuously got cut, and that rope is very expensive. That's why you don't see that rope there anymore. It's more for aesthetics anyway. And then here you can see where there's parking along the side, and then stormwater area over here, which you can barely see. It's hard to identify. You can see that there's parking. That's where most of the FWC officers do park. And then I believe this is
That's my house.
that's your house with the little entrance in the side, and then you have the Willards over here, and then this is another view of the area, and then this is pretty much the last area in the back where it would show that the boardwalk would pretty much terminate probably somewhere over here, but then actually have another entrance point over here. A lot of people have said, you know, and we hear this all the time. We heard it last night. We hear it all the time. You know, we didn't know about this. We didn't know that you guys were even talking about this. We didn't know that these were in the plans. These were in the works. As you know, from the town, we can only do so much to make sure that we notify residents, so on and so forth. You know, now as you know, we're putting on door knockers. We have an app. We have pretty much every technical capability to try to get that information to you, but the burden has to be on the property owner, you know, to make sure that they are aware of what's going around their community. We can post it. We can, you know, put a door knocker on your home. We can email you, so on and so forth. But again, it's the burden's on you to come in and let your voices be heard. A lot of times we get through these processes, and then at the last minute, people come back when we've been talking about this for 3 or 4 years, and they say, well, I didn't even know this was going on. And then what I'm demonstrating in these next 3 slides is every one of these that you see that is underlined was a publicly advertised meeting that was open to the public. It was advertised either on the town's website, social media, town apps, or actually in the newspaper. And you can see that they've been working on this since 2016. We don't need to look at every single one of these, but you can see there was plenty of opportunities for public comment. I do believe some of you actually attended some of their meetings and did provide some comments and questions relative to the recommended designs or the initial designs by Innovative Design Group, who actually came up with some of the plans. One of the things that, you know, pretty much brought Fernwood and Central Park into the limelight was that we were able to get FERDAP funding for both parks. As you know, Town of Windermere, we always have the appearance or the, you know, the stigma of being a wealthy community. We're not. You know, we have 22, we have 1,600 parcels. We get about $2 million in ad valorem taxes. Our total budget is $6 million. We don't have a lot of money to utilize to put towards projects. So we have to look out for grants and other earmarks in order to help us do what we want to do. So one of the things that we typically tap into as a resource is the Florida Recreational Development Assistance Grant, our program, which is called FERDAP. So, you know, we were awarded $50,000 for Central Park. We were awarded $50,000 for Fernwood Park. So when Parks and Recreation decided, listen, we need to get on the same page as far as, you know, typically what happened in the past and kind of tying into last night, there was a hodgepodge of ideas of what they wanted to see at every single park. So they went ahead and hired a professional landscape architect design firm to look at all the parks and make recommendations as to not only passive recreation, but active recreation, each and every one of the parks. And then Parks and Recreation took a look at those amenities, picked and choose which ones they thought would be most appropriate in those parks. And then they made recommendations from a conceptual level to town council. So the two concepts that were actually approved by town council was Central Park and Fernwood. Again, concepts, not designs. So the concept that was approved by town council was for them to have I think it was like a volleyball area, a picnic area, maybe a small pavilion, a boardwalk, so on and so forth. And, those gave us the ability to get points to get those PERDAC grants. But pretty much once we got closer and closer to actually looking and bringing back an actual design to town council, that's when the phone call started relative to the boardwalk, or the recommended boardwalk proposed by Parks and Recreation. This shows you what the boardwalk proposal looks like. It would start at the current dock, and it would extend along the banks, and then have a gazebo at the very end with two entrance points here and here. And then throughout the design, they would have benches so people could take a look at the water. They would have probably, not wayfinding, but they would have items that are listed on there that tells you about what, kind of like you see at Oakland Park. You would see things that describe the type of tree, maybe types of fish, types of birds to look out for, so on and so forth. But when a lot of people, especially the neighboring residents, saw this design, and this is what I said at the last meeting, I want you to put two hats on tonight. It's gonna be hard to do. You gotta think like you're a neighbor to this park, and you have to think like you're somebody that is not a neighbor to this park, that lives maybe 4 or 5 blocks down, that, we're called among the lakes, but in actuality, there's very few areas where you can actually enjoy the lakes. We have Lake Street, we have Bessie, we have here, and then Windermere Recreation Center, and then Palmer Park. But, we say among the lakes, but mostly it's all homes that are built up along the lake. So there's very few places where residents can take their kids, people can go out for walks and actually enjoy the lakes. And that's what the intent of the Parks and Recreation Committee was to attract people to come to the parks, utilize the parks in a passive way. Now, with every positive, there's definitely to become a negative, and we'll talk about that. So when this was proposed, I got a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, a lot of text messages, with fears about, what this would bring and what this may cause, as far as, yes, it's attracting more people, but with attracting more people is going to create more problems. So we started getting a lot of various proposals in from your neighbors to say, hey, listen, how about a scaled down version? How about a different version? Can we make sure that we try to make the dock private, so on and so forth. So these are all the things that we'll go over tonight, the pros and cons and what we can and cannot do with Fernwood Park. But as I said before, you can't talk about Fernwood Park without talking about Bird Island. You just can't do it. Even though they are two separate issues, Fernwood Park is the closest park to Bird Island, so people use it as a jumping off point. Kids swim to it, kids or people use it as a point for people who bring alcohol to the boats to get onto Bird Island. And some people actually use friends' keys, neighbors' keys that don't have a boat pass and use that boat key to get to Bird Island as well. And we have had some incidences at Fernwood Park. Most of them are really minor crimes. We have had a fight out there recently, but most of the crime actually occurs, or the issues occur, at Bird Island. And if there is a rescue, the rescue will occur at Bird Island or Fernwood Park because it's the closest area. Now, that's not to say that the issue was Fernwood Park. The issue was Bird Island. So if you have some teenager that's too intoxicated, non-responsive, they're going to drag that person over to Fernwood Park. You have somebody that gets hit by a boat propeller, they're going to take them to Fernwood Park. So when you see lights, sirens, police activity at Fernwood Park, that does not mean that that issue started at Fernwood Park. It just means that we are the closest point of rescue for that area of that lake. You may go ahead and read the history behind Bird Island, as you so may wish. It was given by the Chases to the Audubon Society. It's pretty much a crescent-shaped island. It is a bird sanctuary and has been a bird sanctuary for quite some time. And, you know, there's various things that we have done since 2020, before 2020, to try to get people off of the island unsuccessfully. And we'll get into that on how we can try to push them even farther off of that island. Here you can see some of the deeds. Again, this is just for background in case you want to take a look at the actual deeds and how the transfer actually occurred and who owns what. So to better understand, you know, how we're trying to deal with the Bird Island issue, you have to understand all the players that are involved in dealing with Bird Island. It's just not dealing with one agency, we're dealing with several. You know, you have the Town of Windermere, and just so you know, our jurisdiction ends at the normal high water elevation. We have no jurisdiction on the lake. We have no jurisdiction on Bird Island. The only way that we would be through a mutual aid call or an automatic aid. And currently we don't have automatic aid for that area, but again, it would only be through mutual aid. You have the Butler Chain of Lakes Advisory Board. You have the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission. You have Orange County, and then you have the Audubon Society. Audubon Society actually owns the island. FWC patrols the waterways. Orange County has jurisdiction on the waterways. The Butler Chain of Lakes Advisory Board, there is an MSTU, which is a municipal service taxing unit that is on your tax bill. So you're going to take a look at your tax bill. Everybody says, well, you know, I pay your taxes, you know, you guys keep charging me these huge taxes. We're actually one of the lowest, if not the lowest, taxing district in Orange County. Most of your taxes go to the school board, you know, Orange County, and you also have these MSTUs that pay for the Butler Chain of Lakes and the protection of those lakes. And that's what the Butler Chain of Lakes Advisory Board does, is they look at how to protect those lakes, and we'll get into the actual specifics of what they do. But basically, you know, we're all in this pot together. And the reason we're in for that pot together is because of, second here. Can you guys see the PowerPoint? Can you guys see the PowerPoint?
We can, but it's not.
Boats.
I see the boats at Bird Island.
We can see it.
You can't see it now? I'm flipping through it.
No, it's your PDF is on.
Yeah, it's not a video.
Yeah, it's PDF, pictures of the boats around Bird Island.
So you can't see the video?
No.
All right, that's my mistake. There you go.
Not yet.
Anyway, it's PDF, so you're not gonna be able to see a video. I have the video. Hopefully I can show it to you after. We all know what the issue is. The boats, the jet skis, they're all mooring up to the island. People are putting tents on the island. People are trespassing on the island. We have pictures of DJs on the island. We have people doing body painting on the island. We have upwards between 75 and 100 vehicles out there on any particular weekend, especially the holidays. And that creates a lot of issues, not only for law enforcement, but it creates a lot of issues, again, for you that live in that area and surrounding those lakes, especially the noise. So our first line of defense is the Butler Chain of Lakes Advisory Board. You can see here of what their tasked with. I don't want to go through each and everything, but pretty much they are for the protection of the Butler Channel Lakes. They get about $1.5 million through that MSTU on a yearly basis. Have they spent all of that money? No, but this is the revenue source that we utilize to pay for the off-duty that right now the Town of Windermere does on the weekends to make sure that we do whatever we can to curtail some of the issues that are ongoing at Bird Island. And for those of you that are not aware of how big the Butler chain is, and with the Butler Channel Lakes Advisory Board, it's made up of, I think, 6 or 7 members. Each one of those members is appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. So whenever they make a recommendation as to how they're going to spend money, it still has to go to the Board of County Commissioners for approval on that. They've done a lot of stuff for the Town of Windermere when it comes to the catch basins for making sure debris doesn't get into the lakes, again, the overtime. And we worked with them on some beautification projects in and around the lakes, planting cypress, planting non-invasives, and also working with them on water treatment projects. So here you have the Butler Chain of Lakes. You can see it's made up of, Lake Down, Little Lake Down, Wasion Bay, Butler, Lake Louise, Isleworth, Blanche, Chase, Tibbet, Butler. There's an unnamed lake. You have Sheen, Pocket, and then Fish. So the total amount of lakes that you have is about 5,000 acres, which is pretty big. And as you can see, that's a lot of area to patrol. And that $1.5 million has to go to enhancing the water quality, enhancing the protection, so on and so forth of all of those lakes, not just one lake, but all those lakes. And that $1.5 million could go pretty darn quick. So then you have another line of defense, which is the Florida Fish and Wildlife. Won't bore you with the details. We all know what they do. They protect the environmental areas, they patrol the waterways and the parks too. So when there's a bear attack or anything like that, they patrol those areas. If there is a natural disaster like what happened in the Panhandle with a hurricane 2 years ago, they were diverted up there for quite some time. For the amount of lakes in Orange and Osceola County combined, you have 6 officers. That's it. And they don't work 24/7. So you have 6 officers working probably 12-hour shifts, 3 days a week. You do have some off-duty details, so on and so forth. But for all of the lakes, all of the park areas that they're responsible for, you have 6, and that is it. So that's why FWC has to utilize OCSO a lot on the additional patrols out there to make sure that everybody's boating safely, they're adhering to the rules. But as you can see, they are stretched pretty darn thin. I can tell you right now, Bird Island isn't the only issue in Orange County when it comes to lakes or Osceola. There's several different areas where they have the same situation. So the amount of resources that we try to get dedicated to this problem, people are trying to pull them in another direction to try to resolve another problem. So we try to be as conscious of the fact that they only have 6 officers, but we try to get what we can when we can get it, especially during the peak seasons when Bird Island is at its most packed. A lot of people are talking about, well, there's a lot of crime at Fernwood Park. There's a lot of calls at Fernwood Park. Most of the calls that we get or are made, and this is from dispatch, are relative to noise complaints. And those noise complaints go to OCSO. And most of the calls go to OCSO, Orange County Sheriff's Office, because they have jurisdiction on the lake. We don't. And when you talk to FWC or when you talk to Orange County Sheriff's Office, if there's 75 boats out there and they hear noise, and remember this, noise travels faster over water. So they could be blaring something probably about 1,500 feet away, but it sounds like it's pretty much in your backyard. Because there's nothing in between the lake and that boat besides your house. So, you know, it's going to be definitely amplified, and, you know, it's hard for them, the enforcement officers, when there's so many boats out there, to identify exactly who is playing the music. Then when they do identify who's playing the music, they go up to them, they tell them to turn it down, and they move back, and then somebody else is blaring music. So it's just a back and forth, and it's hard for them to really patrol when it comes to noise complaints. Now, if somebody's speeding, they do boat safety checks, they can do that. There's even one story where they tried to do, I think it was in 2013, during a holiday weekend, they actually moored one of their boats up and were trying to, you know, either call out to other officers, you know, who was misbehaving, but people decided to cut their line of their boat, and their boat wound up in the middle of Lake Butler. So, you know, they've tried everything, but again, it's the people out there. You know, we don't want to punish the people that are, you know, behaving out there, but it just seems like more and more of the activity that we get out there, the more issues that we have. But as you can see, from 2016 all the way to 2020, most of the crimes that we've seen out there, or the issues as far as calls, are really minor, whether it be vacant vehicles, suspicious people. The major ones, again, is when we had the call for the death that occurred on July 4th. And then we get calls for people that are non-responsive from Bird Island. But again, as you can see from these, it's mostly just your run-of-the-mill calls at a park, and you would see these at any other park. So how has the town tried to resolve this issue between Bird Island and, you know, all of the issues that we've come to know with that location? We've talked about annexation. We've talked about no wake zones. We've made a lot of changes because we do have jurisdiction on the landward side at Fernwood Park, and we'll tell you what we're currently doing, and I'll tell you about some new stuff that actually just got passed that we're going to be doing in the future. Then I'll tell you what the Board of County Commissioners is considering with the Town of Windermere's support as far as a swim area, and then also other ideas as far as creating a critical wildlife area. And you can thank Mr. Willard, who's on this call tonight too, for coming up with that idea, working with Liz Johnson, working with Commissioner Vanderlei on that. And we can also thank Mr. Willard too, because unbeknownst to me and unbeknownst to Parks and Recreation, if we were to use that FERDAP money for the enhancements that we're talking about at the park, then we would have been required to open up that boat dock to everybody. So thankfully, you know, that came up, and we went ahead and withdrew our FERDAP application to make sure that that boat ramp stays private. And the way that it remains private is it was paid for by Parks and Recreation, and it is maintained through the boat passes revenues that we get each and every year. And there's 2 locations where we have the boat keys. It's Lake Bessie, and it is at Fernwood Park. So should the town annex the island? I can belabor this a lot, but no. There's a lot of reasons why we shouldn't. There's jurisdictional issues. When it comes to public works, again, there's issues because once you become responsible for an island, there's so many things that you're going to have to go ahead. You're going to buy a boat. You're going to have to go out there, clean it. You're going to have to make sure that everybody's certified in the operation of that boating vehicle or the boat. You know, we're going to make sure, again, we're cleaning that. We're making sure that we're maintaining it as a wildlife protection area. So the amount of money that we would have to spend just for public works alone far outweighs the benefits from actually annexing that island. And we also looked into the police assessment for annexing that in. Again, we would have to probably hire a marine unit made up of probably 2 officers, buy a new boat, training, salary fringe, all that alone, again, would far outweigh the benefit of annexing the island, because again, we only operate out of about $6 million a year, and probably about 2 to 3 million of that goes to public works, fire department, and the police department. So then they looked at no wake zones. Let's try to slow these people down. Maybe that might deter them, especially with the jet skiers. There's pros and cons with that. The pro is, jet skiers wouldn't be able to jet ski, but then it punishes the people that jet ski properly. If you like to jet ski and you're doing it, respectfully of everybody else, this would eliminate that. This would also eliminate skiing. And their also downfall is that you guys have seen these boats with these large speakers and so on and so forth. They're still going to go and make their way out to Bird Island. Now they're just going to go slower, which means that you're just going to have to hear their music a lot louder for a lot longer. So pretty much there wasn't real much support for the no wake zones. Again, they were talking about trying to protect the people that are swimming out to the island. But when you took the benefit versus the, how much pain you want to inflict on the actual people that are doing it right, there wasn't a lot of push for the actual no wake zones. So here's what we've done in the past and what we're doing in the future right now. So we have an agreement with the Butler Chain of Lakes Advisory Board. They pay for, that's not my daughter screaming in pain, she's just playing. If you guys can hear that. So we have off duty on Saturdays and Sundays, and then sometimes we try to get more off duty either through our reserves on holiday weekends. So they pay for these off duty officers to be out there and making sure that we do, not only by just having the presence of an officer out there, does that probably prevent people from using as a jump off point, whether they're underage, whether they're there for, trying to legally launch a boat, but I think just the appearance of them out there helps a lot. What we also have done is that we've increased restrictions, not only for how you get a boat pass, but we've also increased restrictions now on how you get alcohol in and out of the park. And what we've seen is a ton of positives and a lot of people being turned away from Fernwood Park. And we've seen a drop in actual, arrests, crimes, so on and so forth, related to this area because of what we have done. So first thing is the increased restrictions when it comes to a boat ramp key. When you get your new boat ramp key on October 1st, you will sign a application, pretty much an affidavit stating that every key is going to be numbered. If, let's say, Frank gives his buddy that lives in Winter Garden his key to use the boat ramp and he is caught with that key, Frank loses his key for a year from the date of that violation. People sell keys, people do all sorts of stuff. If they are caught with that key, you lose it for a year from the date of the violation. So if you get caught with that key on September 30th, you're not going to be able to get another key until September 30th of the next year. If that happens twice, then you lose it for 2 years. If you do that a third time, that's it, no more boat pass. If you are caught with a counterfeit key, then you lose that privilege for 2 years. If you are a non-resident and caught with a counterfeit key, you'll be trespassed from that park for 1 year. If you come back to that park, you will be arrested. We're going to be putting up a camera system at the park. The camera system, right now we're working on the Wi-Fi connectivity to get to there. And when we have the Wi-Fi connectivity, then any officer, myself, the chief of police, Scott, Brown, public works director, we can all pull up at any time on our phones or on our computers, the cameras, and see what kind of activity is going on out there. So once we get a call, we can immediately pull up our phones, take a look out there and see what's going on. Not only will it be, a live feed of what's going on, but we'll also be recording as well. So if something bad happens, as far as if, you park your car out there and somebody breaks a window, steals a purse, or breaks into your car, we'd be able to have that video evidence of what happened out there. That's one of the reasons that we put a camera over at Windermere Recreation Center. So another thing that the town council has done, relative to the boat passes, we're going to be putting up a camera. Now we can do cooler checks. Before it said no alcohol in parks, but what that did not give us was the authority to check bags, coolers, anything that would be able to carry alcohol. Before, what we'd be able to do is we'd say, hey, buddy, how you doing? Do you mind if I check your cooler? Do you mind if I check your bag? And if they said no, couldn't do anything. But if they said yes, then we check it. We found alcohol. No alcohol is allowed in here. Bye-bye. Now, if you come in with something, our officers can check it. And if you are found with alcohol, if you're of age, then you're required to take it back to where you came from. If you're underage, we confiscate it and we will trespass you for 1 year from the date of that offense, meaning that if you come back again, you're going to get arrested. Some legal issues, not only, we hear a lot about Lake Street, and this is going to be the same thing as Lake Street, it would be Fernwood. A lot of people are like, why can't you arrest these people for this? Why can't you arrest people for that? What are some of the things that you can and cannot do? Pretty much, once we trespass somebody, if they do come back, we can arrest, but it doesn't make sense to arrest. What we would do is give them a criminal uniform citation, which means that they would have to come to a court date. And the reason for that is 33rd is not going to accept a lot of minor crimes, especially we're in the midst of a pandemic. They're not going to want to waste their time, and we're not going to want to waste our time cuffing and stuffing somebody, writing out a report, driving them over to 33rd and driving back. We lose coverage when we do that. We typically have 2 officers on at a time, and we really don't want to lose coverage for the town of Windermere over a simple trespass. So they will get a criminal uniform citation. They'll have to go to court, see a judge, because it is a second-degree misdemeanor. And if they don't show up to court, then a warrant will be issued for their arrest. Juvenile crimes. If there's alcohol, if there's weed, if there's anything else out there, pretty much the state attorney's office, has, well, you'll see for misdemeanor crimes, but pretty much unless it is a violent crime, a stabbing, a real big beat down or anything else out there, we are not allowed to transport juveniles to the juvie facility, again, because of the pandemic. So any minor crime that is out there, we will go ahead and write them up a criminal uniform citation, and they'll have to see the judge at a future date. But right now, we're pretty much at the will of the juvenile justice system and the state attorney's office of no arrests. Misdemeanor crimes, same thing. 33 doesn't want them. The state attorney's office doesn't want it. And when you look at minor, marijuana, possession, stuff like that, either they're not even prosecuting those crimes, or they're not wanting us to do arrests or so on and so forth. So in most of these cases, these first 3, we'll probably do a trespass. And so if they come back, then they'll have to face a second-degree misdemeanor, or we can actually arrest them if they start mouthing off or doing something, even worse. Another thing to understand is that this is a public park. It is not a private park. It is not just for Town of Windermere residents. It is open to everybody in Orange County, everybody in the state of Florida, and your neighbors that don't have boat passes, they don't have boats, they don't have kayaks. It is open for everybody to enjoy. Noise complaints we talked about, they're hard to enforce because of the fact that there's so many boats out there. We don't need a decibel meter. We just have to have somebody out there, hear it, go out there and, tell them to turn it down. But again, it's a minor misdemeanor, and, the most you would be seeing is maybe a citation. The parking is limited within that park. And because it is the jump off point for a recovery, for a medical emergency or criminal activity on the lakes. We want to make sure that we have an area that is adequate for fire, EMS, and police department to be out there in case something should happen. In addition to that, with public parking, if you don't have public parking and it was just permit pass only, then, if somebody like, let's say Frank Krenz, who's on here, and a member of the Parks and Recreation Committee, doesn't have a boat and he wanted to enjoy that park, he couldn't park within the parking area. Guess where he's going to park? The right of way. So you'd have lines of cars on the right of way for him to enjoy that park or others to enjoy that park. So when working with Orange County, the Audubon Society, FWC, the Butler Chain of Lakes Advisory Board, and the Town of Windermere, and Commissioner Vanderlei, the most immediate thing that we could probably do would be create a swim zone around the island. Before we tried to put trespassing signs up, those were ignored. You've seen a lot of the stuff that we've done in conjunction with those various jurisdictions. Nothing has worked. But the two things that we're working towards now is establishing a swim zone. Now, once you try to change people's behaviors, you're going to have people that are for it and people that are against it. The intent behind the swim zone is to push people back off of the island because it is a bird sanctuary. So the farther off the island that they are, they're unable to wade in the water. They're unable to walk up, party on the beach, stuff like that. So you wouldn't be able to drive your boat up and moor close to the island. It would become a swim area and a swim area only. So any motorized boats that go into that area, they'll be ticketed. Also, there was a fear that people would create what is called a flotilla, I guess, where you tie up a bunch of boats and then people just party on those boats and they just go back and forth to each and every boat. I do believe that as part of the condition of the swim zone is that they're going to go ahead and limit the number of boats that can tie together to 5. So you eliminate those flotillas. So this process will take between 12 and 16 months. It has already been through the BOCC. They need to read some ordinances. Then they need to go to DEP and go through all the hoops and hurdles that they're going to have to go through in order for them to get that first line of defense, I would say, established. But the further away you push people, the more unlikely they are to utilize that island as a party spot. They'll try to find another area where there's a sandbar. I come from Clearwater. Everybody wants a 3 Rooker Island. We want to, areas to where we can moor our boats up, walk around, talk to people, stuff like that. You see the same thing on the East Coast, West Coast, and on the St. Johns River. There's always those party spots that people always go to. If you push people off of that island and they're just in the middle of the water, they're going to try to find somewhere else to go. And I think that's what the intent of the swim area is for first step. The second step would be to create a critical wildlife area. What that do would be another enforcement overlay over the swim area, which I do believe, if you create the CWA, it's more strict on how close you can get to that island. And if you get too close to that island, then you're going to be looking at some hefty fines. I'm not sure what the degree of criminal citation that you would get, but because it is a critical wildlife area, I can guarantee you that the fines are going to be stiff, and the penalties are going to be stiff as well. So the first is the swim area, and the second layer of protection would be the critical wildlife area. If those two actually do come to fruition, I do believe that that would solve a lot of the issues that happen at Bird Island. Right now we have to count on self-policing. That's not working. But by doing these two measures, I do believe that it'll reduce a lot of the activity that is occurring there, because again, they're not going to be able to pull up, wade, or do any of that. They're pretty much going to try to find another location to party. This explains pretty much how the critical wildlife area is established. And this is another video that's showing the 4th of July where it showed how bad it was out there. One of the things that you can do to help with establishing the swim area and establishing the critical wildlife area. So this is how you can get involved in this system, is that the town of Windermere is, working with all those jurisdictions. And what we've done is we've created a repository for complaints. So if you see something while you're boating, and you can take a picture of it and you can document it. We have a link, which I know Liz is on the call right now, and she can share through the chat what that link is. One second here. But if you have videos, you can download the video. If you have a written complaint, you can write the complaint, and then we'll put it into this repository that we'll send to DEP, we'll send to the Board of County Commissioners, we'll send to the Boiler Chain Lakes Advisory Board. So we have the evidence and we have the data and the logs that we need in order to establish a critical wildlife area. The more that we have, the better. So if you have a complaint, make sure you jot it down, make sure you send it through the repository. And if you can, take pictures, take videos, because everything is going to help us get these 2 overlays on that island to hopefully curtail a lot of the bad behavior that's out there. Now, public suggestions. Just like the cut through traffic. We didn't create the issue, we're dealing with the issue. So the decision is, how much pain do we want to put on ourselves in order to, help a situation that we didn't create? Just like with the cut through traffic, we've done a couple of one-ways. We're going to be looking at enhancing some of the roundabouts, doing some traffic improvements. We've all had to deal with that in certain times, one way or the other. But we are going to have to inflict some pain on ourselves until those areas are, deemed critical wildlife area or a swim area. So we have pros and cons of, both of the suggestions that were out there. So one of the things that, sorry. Again, it's a pain because people are trying to come into the meeting, and every time it comes in, it pops up and I can't read what's on the screen. So people have said, we'll create no parking along Butler and 7th. Only allow limited parking for people with boat passes and EMS. Again, if we were to create no parking along Butler and 7th, that means no parking for anybody. A lot of residents have, get-togethers, they have friends come over, so on and so forth. We can't be selective of how we enforce it. Once those no parking signs are up, we enforce it. So if your mother-in-law gets a no parking ticket, or your father-in-law gets a no parking ticket and is mad, we're not going to be able to do anything about it. They're going to have to pay that ticket just like anybody else. In addition to that, if you only allow no parking in the park for only boat pass people, then people that don't have boats would have to buy a boat pass in order to go to a public park, and you just can't do that. Some people have actually even talked about, well, why don't we just go ahead and create a pass system? We have a staff of 5.5 people. The people that have the sticker pass, like you see at college campuses, you see in South Beach, Miami, where they're close to commercial areas, and a lot of people are parking in residential areas. They actually have entire departments to do that. We don't have the resources, nor do we have the amount of money that we could invest in this. We can put as many protections as you guys want. But that boat ramp key and those tennis passes, I can tell you right now, the price would be astronomical. So we try to make sure that we're trying to do what we can to keep those costs down, but not only, enforce what we can, but again, we have to keep that park open because it is public. Let me just make sure I address everything. So people have talked about moving the gate. Some people have talked about having 2 gates. Some people have talked about having 1 gate. Again, if you move that gate to the very front, then you are denying access to anybody that does not have a boat pass, which means that a public park is now not accessible to the public, which means that now you have people parking along the right-of-ways, and you're going to have the side gate where people can actually go in, but they won't be able to drive through. So now you have people parking along the right-of-ways. And, let's say that, I live 3 houses down from the park and I want to have a, bar mitzvah. I want to have a, my daughter's graduating college, whatever it is, and I want to have it at my house. If that were a private park, then you wouldn't be able to put overflow parking over there and keep them out of the right of way. A lot of you have used that as your overflow parking if you're having parties, if you're having get-togethers, so on and so forth. If you make that a private area where you need a boat pass, that stops. You wouldn't be able to do that. So you'd have to park all the way along the right-of-ways, or you'd have to have them park at the town admin facility and walk down 7th to get to your home. Or you'd have to figure out where else you can find them parking to get to your home for that gathering. Again, the comment of having a boat gate at both of the entrances, logistically, that would just be a nightmare for somebody. The amount of times that you'd have to get in and out of your car is just astronomical. I went step by step before, as far as, right when you get to it, you'd have to get out of your car and lock, drive through, get out, lock the gate, pull up to the next gate, get out, unlock it, launch your boat, get out, get the key, go back to the next gate because you can't park there, your trailer there. It just becomes way too arduous of a process, especially if there is, inclement weather coming or something like that. You just can't do it. And it's just too much of a pain. So the real reason I think that this came up and the reason that, a lot of people gained attention to this subject of Fernwood Park is the boardwalk. And it can be seen in various ways. Remember, I wanted you guys to put your hat on as not only a neighbor, but also somebody that doesn't have access to a lake. They might live 3 blocks down. And they want to enjoy the lakes just like everybody else. A lot of the people that have lakefront properties have these long boat docks and, they're able to enjoy the lakes, but some of the people that are landwards don't have that possibility. So that's why they utilize the little boat ramp that's right here, or the boat dock that's right here. And they can look out, enjoy sunsets, they can fish off of that, so on and so forth. So the intent of Parks and Recreation was pure. It was to attract people to the park in a passive way, to enjoy the lake, to enjoy nature, and enjoy the lakes for the entire town, meaning the Willows, the Manors, Marina Bay, everybody. Even when we have events like the 4th of July fireworks, if we have the Christmas parade that's on the lake, stuff like that. They want an amenity where people can be out there and enjoy. Now, always with the positive comes a negative. All of us were young. All of us were teenagers. All of us are glad that we didn't have cell phones when we were teenagers. Where did we go when we were young? We went to where our parents weren't. We went to parks. We went to wooded areas, wherever you wanted to go. We did that where we wanted to hang out. We wanted to hang out with friends, and a lot of the people or the teenagers, the kids in our area, whether they're from this area or not, they migrate to the parks. So when you do create amenities, yes, you do create amenity for the people that have pure intentions, but you also create an amenity where people, can gather, whether it's, drinking underage, just kids hanging out, stuff like that. Yes, you're going to get the good with the bad. Lake Street's a great example. It's a place where people can swim, kids can swim. And that has caused a lot of issues because, number one, there's more people congregating there than is allowed. And number two, it gets very noisy. There's just way too many people out there. They jump off the top of the docks and stuff like that and doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing. But most of the time when our law enforcement officers go out there, it's very cordial, it's very peaceful. The kids disperse, but it's unfortunate again that the neighbors have to, deal with that. Now, some of the people that don't live next to the park may say, well, sorry, you guys bought a piece of property next to a park. You get what you pay for. You bought a piece of property knowing it's a park. You bought a piece of property knowing that, in the future, there could be some more amenities, that could create more people coming to the park. So that's just a part of actually owning a piece of property next to a park. So that's where, the people that are outside put that hat on, and now the people that live next to it, they put another hat on. But yes, okay, we understand that you want to attract people to a park, but is there a compromise out there to where, you're still creating a passive amenity, you're still attracting people to that park, but you're doing it in a manner in which to where it's not going to be a huge influx, a huge amenity to where it is going to overburden the area and disturb the quiet peace and enjoyment of the people that actually live in that area. If you live in that area, you wouldn't want it either because of, all the things that we already talked about. So we've had a couple of residential compromises be submitted. This one is from an adjacent property owner. And pretty much, and the difference, again, I need to keep going back and forth. I apologize for that. With this right here, the difference between this and Lake Street is that this is really not a swim area. That's right here. It's all within the cypress. If you jump off into this area or try to wade in that area, it's pretty difficult. So I do think Lake Street will still be popular no matter what happens here. But this still does, attract, again, kids and, other people, especially, maybe after hours. So we understand what the issues are. Again, we were all kids at one time, and law enforcement knows what the issues are as well. So a compromise was put out there by some of the adjacent property owners of, okay, well, we understand that you guys want to put an amenity out there. Let's go ahead and try to scale it down. Number one, with the boardwalk that you have proposed right here, you're going to have to go through various permitting agencies. And through this
This is in the water.
excuse me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was, no.
Oh, no worries. As long as you don't call me a name, I'm fine. So yes, this one right here is in the water. And with that, you're going to need various permits. You're going to have to go through DEP. Scott can list out the litany of permits that you're required to get, which costs a lot more than if you're just going to stay on the landward side. And it does cost a lot more. So not only does it cost more in permitting and design, but as you can see here, it's a pretty large boardwalk. So the amount of money that you're going to have to spend on the boardwalk itself is a lot of money. So when you come to the compromised concept, you would just add parking in some of these areas. You would leave an area for fire EMS. You'd still maintain the retention area and possibility of expanded retention area in Fernwood Park. And what you would do, instead of putting the boardwalk in the water, you would put it on the landward side. By doing it on the landward side, we would control the permitting of that. In addition to that, it doesn't become a drop-off point for people to swim to Bird Island. It doesn't, it's really close to where we would put the camera. And when our law enforcement officers, drive through here on a nightly basis, it's easier for them to patrol. than actually trying to find somebody that's way over here or in these dark areas. Also, it costs less because it's scaled down, and because it's scaled down, you probably see a lower amount of actually people utilizing it at one time. So you have less permitting, less people, it's less costly, and it still provides what the intent of Parks and Recreation wanted, which was a passive amenity for people still to be able to enjoy the lakes. So discussion. So here's where I would like your comments and feedback back. If you guys are familiar with Zoom, or if you're not familiar with Zoom, there is a little hand that you can raise if you wish to speak on the subject of the boardwalk. You can raise your hand and I will go ahead and call on you and you can tell me what your thoughts are. Because this is just a charrette, I'm not holding anybody to 3 minutes like we do for workshops and formal meetings, because I want to get as much input as possible so I can relay it to not only residents, Parks and Recreation, but also Town Council. The first one that had their hand up is Mr. Willard. You're on, sir.
Hey, Robert, thank you. You mentioned many of the points that I want to make, but in terms of the larger boardwalk proposal by Parks Committee, I think we failed to identify that there's a basic safety concern that needs to be pointed out in intentionally mixing pedestrian traffic, intended pedestrian traffic to the boardwalk amenity with the significant vehicular traffic we have from the historical and steady use of the property as a boat ramp. Everyone that moved over there knows it's a boat ramp. It's always been a boat ramp, and it functions well for that purpose. But people, that doesn't mean everyone knows how to drive a boat with a trailer or back it up. And in any other public park I've ever been to in other jurisdictions with ramps, the vehicular parking is far away from where the ramp is actually located and where the vehicles are backing up with trailers. And we certainly don't want to encourage a lot of pedestrian traffic in that same area. Parking is already limited in the park. I would wager that somewhere between 70 and 80 days a year, mostly weekends and holidays, the park is literally full if the weather is good. And once we expand the retention pond, I think we're going to have even more limited parking. So from boaters using the park and emergency vehicles and law enforcement using it, it's already almost at capacity. The key is to try to design an amenity that benefits residents, not just anybody. I mean, yes, people will, use it, but it is a town park, and we're trying to make it available for town residents. Without an established, need for something as significant as the proposed boardwalk, I think that a shorter version as shown in the compromise with a 40 or 50 foot boardwalk outside of the wetlands with up to 3 more additional 8-foot benches, which would triple the number of benches with a clear view of the lake, that would provide a passive viewing opportunity for people that are taking a walk, want to go into the park, sit down and enjoy the lake view. I think that is extremely significant, beneficial, and would be of use to residents. A larger amenity that could be used as a drop-off for Bird Island and a gathering place for people at night back in the dark corners is not just going to attract residents, that's going to attract non-residents and not the people that we're looking to invite into the park. You already mentioned the wetland encroachment. I think the permitting of a elevated boardwalk with a back to it above the park, above the wetlands rather, is virtually impossible to get permitted. It would require a state sovereign land lease where you have to show need, you have to show avoidance and minimization of wetland impacts, and none of that has been done in this case. And I don't know that we could show it even if we tried. So I would like to, the last point is that when you live next to the park, you're constantly aware on busy days that, the entire park is used as a bathroom from time to time because there are no sanitation facilities, nor are any proposed in terms of restrooms or septic tanks or God forbid, portalettes. But the busier the park gets and the more people are there without sanitation facilities, the more you just have to watch them relieve themselves when the time comes, usually after a long day on the lake. And I think that can further be avoided. So anyway, for that reason, I think myself and the other neighbors adjacent to the park would be supportive of the reduced size of the boardwalk and limited number of additional seating capacity, as well as the idea of identifying the location of parking areas, because right now people park all over the place. And I think if you had a demarcation of the parking, both for emergency vehicles and for boaters, you could maximize the capacity of the park and keep people out of the travel pattern of the trailers coming in and out. That's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Willard, all great points. And one thing I forgot to add is that this area that is located over here, if you were around in 2017 for Hurricane Irma, we have two locations where we have permitted DEP drop-off sites for debris pickup. And the reason why I have a drop-off site here is because we have such a huge tree canopy, we can't bring the large trucks with the cherry picker in to pick up a lot of the debris. So we have to have the smaller trucks pick up the debris, drop it off at Fernwood and Windermere Recreation Center. And then the cherry pickers come in, pick it up in the big trucks because you have the clearance there, and they drive out. So any additional amenities that are in this area here, as far as fences, gates, anything else that, has been suggested to be out here, it would have to be, be able to be removed on a immediate notice. So as far as identifying, better parking areas, it'd probably be done with railroad ties or something else. Just so if we're in that situation again, hopefully we don't. But again, that is our pickup point for debris if there were an emergency to occur. Paul, you're up. Buddy Paul, FSU friend, FSU man, you gotta unmute yourself, buddy. Gotcha. Hold on. Can't hear you yet.
Okay, now you can hear me.
Gotcha.
Hey, I guess I must have thought there was going to be a retention area in Fernwood Park. Is that happening?
Yes, sir. It's located right in this area.
I can't see that anyway, so that's okay. Okay, that's all I wanted to know. As long I thought there was maybe that would be taking up a lot of that space down there.
We're going to be expanding that depending upon how the roadway project goes. But I can guarantee you that's probably going to be expanded no matter what.
Okay, thanks. Y'all doing good. Thanks a lot.
All right. We'll see what happens on Saturday night with the Knowles, buddy.
God, yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Please raise your hand. Anna Mae.
No,
Hi, Robert. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I spoke last time. I've been pretty verbal on all this. I completely agree with what Jim Willard said. I've lived next to the park for 33 years, and I've seen a lot. And I've seen a lot change in our park, in our town, and in the community at large. My concern is if we build this big amenity, they're going to come, and I think you mentioned that in the last meeting. People, the park is used, especially during those weekends, for Windermere residents to launch and retrieve their boats. There is limited parking. I would guess that if you ask Windermere at large, would you want to add something to the park that's going to take away space for launching, safe launching, and for parking your vehicle? I would guess they'd say no. And if we make this park attractive to others in Central Florida, that's exactly what's going to happen. The limited parking is going to be taken by people who are dropping their cars to go to Bird Island or to hang out on the boardwalk, the platform. I will tell you, people use our park as a destination. I've got photographs of people with blankets down, hanging out on the dock. And I don't think we need to go into any more about the trouble that's been occurring down there with drunken teenagers and fights. The fight was a brawl. It was a brawl of several teenagers. One took off in a car, hit another teenager with their car, and it was ugly. The mention of the teenager who was vomiting, he was so intoxicated that I had to stop them from putting him in a car and have 911 called because he could have died. And as a pediatric ICU nurse, I've seen that. Jim brought up the noise, the public urination. There's a trash issue. It's unsafe as it is. And we also have an issue with parking along our streets, with speed of vehicles coming in. I'm not sure my neighbors want our corner to become this destination for Central Florida. And that is what's going to happen. I have spoken frequently to Windermere Police over the springtime because I was stuck at home looking at the park. And one of them did pass the comment to me is, I don't know how we're going to patrol, especially that platform, which is out of sight. And there's a mention of a camera, which is great, but a camera is only as good as the person who is constantly monitoring it. And I am tired of being the one who monitors the park and calls the police, and being that lady. I don't want that role. It puts me in jeopardy. Also, I will tell you that the dock that we have is known as Police Dock to the youth of Central Florida, because I talked to one of them with the police and I asked him, how do you know about this dock? How do you know that this is a conduit to Bird Island? And he told me it's put out on social media. I'm concerned. I'm very happy about the measures that are being taken for Bird Island to put the 50-foot perimeter. But I think, as we spoke about before, and I think you said, Robert, that they're going to find another place to go. I'm concerned that it's going to be pulled up to our dock, our boardwalk, our platform, and that's going to be the new congregating place. They don't care about putting their boat off in the water. They'll jump out and they'll walk. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned environmentally. I will tell you, honestly, I don't want anything but to be a good neighbor, and hopefully to have a place for my fellow residents to go. I would support having a scaled down version such as what Jim Willard has proposed. I also want to clearly say, I don't live on the lake. I don't have the access to the views and all the amenities of the lake. I have to walk down there and see it. But for me, the cost outweighs the benefit. And so I think I've said it all before, everyone's heard it. I understand the intention of the Parks Committee. Unfortunately, I think it's going to spin out of control like it has at Lake Street, and we're going to be stuck. So thank you.
Thank you, Anna Mae. Joan Foglia.
Hi, everyone. Robert, could you enlarge the drawing that's on the screen right now or zoom in on it? Any?
Yeah, let me go to the full page one.
Okay. Is the so is this ramp, is that on the water or it's on dry land?
Land.
It's on land. So I love the design that Parks and Rec did for this park. And I was actually at the meeting when we were talking about all this, but I was under the impression this park was owned by the Town of Windermere. It wasn't a public park, but it is a public park, right? Because
yeah, being owned by the Town of Windermere means it is a public park. Just like
okay.
If you go to an Orange County park, anybody has access to that park.
Okay, I thought for some reason because the boat ramp was here. So to be honest with you, I mean, this would be great if we could make it nicer and amenities for the residents, but I don't really see the point of putting the boardwalk here if it's not going to be on the water where the kids can fish or look at the fish. I mean, maybe just put benches along there or come up with an alternative. I love that design they came up with originally, but I have seen the problems down at Lake Street, and we still don't have a solution for that park yet. I don't think it's still closed, right?
Yeah, it's closed right now. That's going to take up a lot of my October, would be the Lake Street issue.
I know.
As well as Bessie.
I don't know what's going on at Bessie, but it's a beautiful design. The thought is really great, but I understand everyone's fears in that, you know, will attract more kids and more problems to this area rather than having the kids growing up here and the residents and responsible people enjoying the amenities. It's just, hello, we're here and come enjoy and ruin our lives in the town and the police. I know they're the kids down Lake Street are respectful when the police come, but the minute they leave, they are not, because I've been on that dock trying to talk to some of them.
So are you in favor of the Parks and Recreation design or the compromise design, or?
I'm in favor of whatever they decide to do. If they think making the boardwalk smaller and leaving it on dry land would benefit the park and the residents, then sure. I just thought it would be a great idea being over the wetlands, but I guess that's impossible to do.
Okay.
So yeah, they worked really hard on this project.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, you know, just for everybody that's on, you know, I see faces shaking. I see people going like this. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, you know, whether you're for or against it. We're just here to see, you know, input from everybody, seek input. And then if there's a compromise to be had, that is what we're trying to gain out here. So thank you very much, Joan.
Thank you.
Lower your hand here. Is it Mr. Tegler? Okay, you were next, and then I think Rick, I'll call on you after them. So go ahead, Teglers.
Thank you, Robert. I'm also interested in the revised plan that Jim came up with. It has a lot less impact on the park. I think it kind of solves the parking problem. You know, we had this long discussion about people parking up and down the street to use this tremendous boardwalk, and that kind of get resolved at the same time. So that helps out. As far as the gazebo area that I was told was up on land, it is not up on land. Today it's in about 3 to 4 feet of water. I'm in the dock business. I can see my seawall. I measured over from it, and it's clearly in navigable water. So, you know, it's just an invitation for trouble over time with boats coming in there. And also, when people are over there, I've been to all the meetings over the years about noise and excessive noise and all. And the constant answer is we can't do anything about it. Well, this is going to be the same thing once this deck is installed over here and these people are making noise and just screaming and yelling and all this going on. And I call to make a complaint, the same answer is going to be, we can't do anything about the noise. So it's a very big concern of ours, because even on a Saturday when we sit on our lanai at the back of the house or whatever, which is a long distance from the existing dock, sometimes I walk over there to see if somebody's in my backyard, and they're on that dock, which is 380 feet away from my property.
Plus they've been coming over to take pictures.
And now this proposed octagon is going to be 25 feet from my property. And if people are over there talking, I'm going to hear every conversation. I know there's not a lot of sympathy from everybody else, but it's going to just completely ruin any kind of serenity I have on my property. And it's a major concern of my wife and myself.
And they're already coming over to take pictures.
And we already have, last weekend, we had people sitting on the wall taking pictures of their family and this and that. And we were like, excuse me, you know, we're polite and everything. This is private property. Oh, I didn't know, this is a park here and blah, blah, blah. And so it's only going to get worse. We have a constant trespassing problem on our property. And I understand that's the situation we're in. We're on the point. These kids come up, they run across our yard, they do whatever, they just scream back at us, they jump in the water. But to build this bigger dock and all of a sudden like amplify this problem, it seems absurd to me. But, you know, to have a few more spots to sit on a bench and watch the fireworks or watch the boat parade, that's fantastic. If somebody's concerned about, well, I'd like my kids to be on the water, I'd like to be fishing or swimming or whatever, we have a dock for that already. They can walk out there, they can swim off the end, they can be out on the water, they can throw a line in. So we've got the best of both worlds with this new design, and I'm certainly for it. Thank you.
All right, next up is Rick Mitchell.
Hey, Robert, thanks. I think there may be some misimpressions about the permit. I think even Joan said that based on what she heard, she thought it may be impossible, and that's not true. But can you just give us a status on the permit? Because my understanding was there was $7,000 in the budget for permitting for the P&R design. Are you saying that's inadequate now?
No, we actually stopped the permitting. The out-of-pocket, I believe that we're out on this is about $3,500. Is that right, Scott?
$3,750.
$3,750.
Okay, and so do we believe the total of $7,000 is adequate to get the permit for the boardwalk over the water as planned or as proposed?
Scott?
We originally had for design and permitting $7,500. After we spoke with the state in South Florida, it was going to be an additional $1,500 for permitting. So that 75 would have gone to 9,000, and that would have included permitting and design, 2 construction documents.
Okay, so it's not impossible. It would be $9,000. So I just don't want anyone leaving this public meeting with the misimpression that it was incapable of being permitted. Because I think there's a real difference between what is proposed and the scale. I mean, the scaled down version is so small and it's on land that it almost seems like it's irrelevant. It'd be better to do nothing to do that.
If I could, just to clarify, it'll be the same amount of permitting to do the scaled down version as it would the other one, because the scaled down, the reason the permitting is because we have multiple docks on the permit, on the property. So it no longer fell under the square foot rule. It falls under the amount of docks, because we already have 2 docks on our property. This would be considered a third. We would do a sovereign's land lease, which was very little money, but even this scaled down version is in the sovereign's land.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that point was clear to everybody, that it's not impossible and it's not going to cost us a fortune.
Well, now the construction of the boardwalk will be a big difference between the smaller version and the big one, of course.
Correct. And as I said before, please make all comments directed towards me, not to anybody that's made any other comments. I did see Jim, you raised your hand.
I did, Robert, but I don't want to get into a debate about permittability of wetlands encroachments and docks. I'm very familiar with that process, but it's not worth a further debate. I would agree that it would be, nothing's impossible. I think it would be extremely difficult, but be that as it may, it's not something. I'm not in favor of the expanded boardwalk in any event. So,
Thank you, Mr. Willard.
Thank you.
Joan again.
I'm so sorry. I don't know why it keeps doing that. I'm not raising my hand. I'm not touching anything. Okay, bye.
All right. Frank, I see you waving your hand. Did you have a comment, sir?
I do. So a question for Jim Willard. If the smaller version of the boardwalk was sitting on land and somewhat cantilevered over the water, does that make it better and easier?
Remember, Frank, we're not trying to get in a back and forth between individuals. We're trying to direct it towards us. So,
okay, well, let me direct that to you then, Robert.
Okay.
If there's an alternative that would involve making the smaller scale boardwalk sited on land and at least partly cantilevered so that it gave you more of a feeling that you're over the water, then I think that would be worth considering.
Okay. We can take that into consideration when we go back to Parks and Recreation as well. My internet's going in and out right now, so I think everybody's on their Netflix. So if I don't hear your full question, I apologize, but Scott has better internet than I do, so he'll be able to document these and we'll get back to you. Let me scroll through. If you haven't raised your hand and you wish to speak, please go ahead. If not, I don't see any other faces. Anna Mae, you're back on the clock.
Hi, Robert. I just have a question for you. What is the process going forward that we can expect regarding this issue?
What we would do is we would take it back to Parks and Recreation with all of the comments, the suggestions that we have, see if they would stay with the recommendation that they have or amend that recommendation, and then take whatever recommendation to Town Council for approval, and then get into the actual design and permitting of the structure.
Okay, and one more thing. I think I read, I don't know where I came up with it. That you are in, as town manager, in an advisory position regarding issues like that. Is that correct?
No. Pretty much when I first became town manager, typically they look, some councils from a council manager standpoint, they look for recommendations from staff, so on and so forth. But since we have so many boards and committees, my job is to facilitate the discussions and to assist boards and committees on agendas, subjects, and getting them the tools they need in order for them to accomplish whatever goals they have set. So like when they were trying to plan all of the parks, we were the ones that assisted them in drafting the RFQ. We assist them in drafting the grants, their agendas, and then presenting stuff to town council, working with them and getting quotes. But as far as me giving advice or pushing an issue one way or the other, my job is to present the facts and I give it to those who have votes. A lot of people believe that I have a vote for some reason, which I don't. But it's up to town council to make the ultimate decision of whether or not, what type of dock gets constructed in that area.
Okay, that helps. And do you and Chief Ogden have any input as to if we were to put in an extensive boardwalk as planned, how that would impact the town? I've heard you say several times you have 5.5 people to manage quite a bit in this town, and also with the police chief, because I've talked to individual officers, but not to the chief, on how that would impact, what they do.
I mean, with any amenity that you create, especially, in that area, and, Deputy Chief is on the line as well, you are going to probably have an increased number of calls. I mean, it just goes with having a public park with another amenity, especially one, that, again, as planned, has that gazebo in the back. So I'm sure you're going to get more calls, but it's mostly going to be for, teenagers and stuff like that. With that gate open, typically the police department does sometimes patrol and go through that little circle area to make sure that the gate's locked. We actually had a gate or a key get broken into a lock on Sunday, I believe, so we had to fix that. But yes, with anything that you build, you're going to get probably some more calls. But the nature of those calls, I don't believe are going to be of significance. It'll be, again, just kids drinking or congregating or something like that. DC's on if she has any additions to that, but it's nothing that we couldn't handle with our current staffing of our police department.
And I'll just add that the parks are closed after dusk. So, and the officers know that each of our parks, in fact, I just sent out a list the other day and updated specific addresses for each of our parks in our town so that we can keep a better track of any calls for service that we have. So, because in the past, what was happening was neighbors would call in from their home addresses, so it was more difficult to get a collection of calls. So we're hoping that this will help us from the mid-September on getting a better idea of what's happening out there. But after dark, officers are going through all the parks. That's one of the main things that we'll do, and the side streets and whatnot. So I think more of your issues might be on the weekends with people coming in or, again, going out to the island. But I think it's something that will be manageable.
Yeah, because I mean, what happens and has happened frequently is because I live on the park and I look at it and I don't want to be in the position where I'm having to call the officers constantly. I feel like you have better things to do. You have a big area to police. And I know in the past, we've had a gate, and this is aside from the boardwalk. This is just Fernwood Park, because we have problems in Fernwood Park even now. Is we used to have a gate that could be closed at sunset. There was a sign that was there, and there was a gate, and it was closed at sunset. And I'm not sure what the issues are with why that gate was taken down. But without a sign, without a gate, it is essentially meaningless that our park is closed at sunset. So, you know, and again, these are comments that are not even related to the boardwalk. They're related to the park because there's already issues at night.
Yeah. Relative to the gate in the front, it was removed because, you know, typically, you know, same thing with Windermere Recreation Center. You know, if Monday through Friday, Public Works is there, and on the weekends, you know, or if Public Works is busy, then we either have Public Works or the police department open up those areas. Let's say the police are on a call that morning and they're unable to unlock that gate. That creates an issue. So that's why the gate was removed.
I mean, that's completely understandable. It's just, you know, it's closed, but it's not closed. You know, it's closed, but it's open. And so, okay, thank you.
Joan, did you raise your hand again accidentally?
I think Joan wants to talk.
No, I'll talk now. So I think a good idea would just be to attend the next Parks and Rec meeting.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, well, we'll schedule it and we'll discuss the item. Nora Brophy's on. She's the chairman, and
right.
You know, Rick is on the line. I'm sure he's, you know, let Tracy know. You know, you have Frank Krenz that's on the line as well. He's part of the Parks and Recreation Committee. Bob McKinley is familiar. Yesterday was his birthday, but since we had such a long meeting the other night, I think tonight he's actually celebrating it. And we have many council members on tonight as well, which is why I'm recording. But I believe there's been a lot of dialogue, and you know, it's been productive, I believe. So
yeah. Is there any way, I had a question about the gate by the boat ramp. Is there any way to change the system from a regular key that can be taken somewhere and duplicated to aren't there more sophisticated keys that can't be copied, or a key fob or something?
The only thing that is going to work is, again, the key system. Mm-hmm. If you are familiar with key fob systems, or if you know people that live in gated communities, those gates are are probably more broken than they are operational, mm-hmm. whether it's through lightning strikes, vandalism, stuff like that. And when those systems go down, they're down for quite some time. So the key is probably the most viable option right now. Those keys will be numbered. Okay. They have do not duplicate on them. And again, if you are found with a forfeit,
I heard you say that, Robert. You don't need to.
Yeah, a forged key, then you pretty much lost your privilege to use the boat pass.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
And those keys can't be duplicated at like Home Depot or somewhere like that. They're pretty unique to our locksmith. He's actually called me before telling me he'll refuse to make a copy, but he'll report back to me if somebody comes in and tries to get one done. I'm not saying it's impossible. Anybody can get a file and make one out, but typically they're hard to find, those blanks.
Okay, great. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, and if you sign up for an application, that still gives that in the application, it will state that you give authorization to town staff, which includes the police department, to ask for your ID when you pull up, if they're on duty out there, to again make sure that it is in conjunction with the list that we have. So the more, strict you make it, the less likely people are going to abuse it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Anybody else? My stomach is grumbling a little bit, and I know a lot of us were on that marathon of a call last night. I apologize for limiting your time to 3 minutes. I know it's a really passionate item that you wish to discuss. We've been through our phase 1 of discussions. There will be a phase 2 of discussions. We'll do again another Zoom to where it's not a formal meeting, but it's just you and I and the engineers, and there will not be a time limit. But we have to establish time limits to make sure that nobody is just filibustering during those meetings. So I do apologize with trying to limit your times, but that's the nature of public meetings. But that's why it's beneficial to have these. Anybody else? Okay. Well, thank you guys very much. I really appreciate your input. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time to attend the meeting and, gaining the facts. So if you have neighbors, friends, anybody else that has any questions, please let them know. If they don't know about this issue, let them know, whether they're for or against it. We need to make sure that everybody's aware of it. And, again, hopefully it comes to a compromise where makes everybody happy. So again, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you,
Good
everybody.
night, everyone. Good night, Paul.